Welcome, everybody, and welcome to Embracing Christianity here on God's People Say. And tonight is a very cool night. It's a very special night because I am really pumped up about this because, believe it or not, I have a very special guest, and her and I used to do a radio show together a long time ago. And this is actually the first time her and I have been able to speak to each other in many years. I wouldn't say many years, but since 2015
Hmm.
is the last time that her and I actually, I think it was just before 2015 when we were on the air, last time we were on the air. But it's Christy Baker. She's a Nashville recording artist, very, very talented. And her and I used to do Late Night with Rob and Christy, and it was a very, very good show. We had a lot of really cool guests on our show, and a lot of great memories. And her and I used to talk quite a bit, even after the show. We used to talk a lot. Uh, so Christy, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob. And it has been a long time. It's been a
Yeah,
really long time,
yeah, a lot's
and
happened over the years.
it has.
Yeah, you even got married.
I did, and we'll be celebrating our next anniversary next month
How
on
many
the
years?
22nd. 3 years,
Three
and
years.
we've been
You,
together almost
you,
13 years.
wow, wow. Yeah, you guys been 3 years. So you got married in 2000.
But hang on, let me
She
let me
doesn't
think
even
for a minute.
know.
Let me think for a minute. Hold up. So, like 3 years ago, it's 24. So 2021.
Oh, okay. All right. 2021. Okay. See, I
It
was kind of
was
wondering if you had forgotten that you had gotten married.
it was a nice
Usually
wedding.
it's the
We
guy that forgets the time, not the woman.
I'm sorry.
But it's okay. That's usually how it goes. But anyway, yeah, you and I used to have a lot of fun. We used to have so much fun on our shows and stuff like that. We had a lot of cool guests too.
We did. I remember, do you remember Danielle Peck and all that we
Yep.
had on the show?
Oh
And
yeah.
it was pretty great.
Yeah. We used to have a lot of fun. It was a long show. We do up to 4 hours on the air, a lot of talking. Sometimes I think back and I go, how in the world did we talk that long? I don't know how we did that. And all that dialogue, all that talk, and it was just, but mostly what the shows were about was up and coming new artists in the music industry and stuff like that. Didn't we
That's-
also do, we remember how we used to do the book, and we hated
Oh
it.
yeah.
You remember how we
Yes.
get a book author, and then you remember when we had that young man, he was the country rap artist,
Oh yes, I do. It's been
and
a
he
while, but I think I
uh
remember him. Yeah.
oh, I know his name's on it'll pop into my mouth here in a minute. Yeah. But
You think I
I
would remember all
remember
that?
what's that?
I said you'd think I would remember all that, but I
Yeah.
can't, you know.
Yeah.
They were all wonderful guests. I
Oh yeah.
can't.
Yeah. Except for the authors. I couldn't stand them. They're like you sit there and okay, you get them on a radio show and you go, so what was your inspiration about your book? And they go, well, I just thought about it and I wrote the book. And we'd sit there in silence, like, oh, that's it.
But the up and coming artists were pretty great. And then they got, inspiration from the artists that were all already out there
Right, right.
and making it happen already. And so it would give them an opportunity to get, I'm trying to think. Let's see, did we have Levi Kobe?
Levi, yep, we had him on there. Yep, Levi, and we actually had Christina Grimmie. That was before you came on. That was just before you came on. Um, you I don't know if you remember her, but um uh we had Noah, what's his name? I forget what his name was. And then Noah, he sang with Christina. And then I had Christina Grimmie on. uh it was just her and I. And it was a really good show. I mean, she was so great. And then, she got killed. She
I
got
didn't
killed.
know that.
Yeah,
I'm s-
she was on The Voice, and she was doing her thing, and she was getting stardom doing the one thing. She was getting very popular, and some fan came and shot her right in the head right during autographs and stuff right there. So she lost her life, which was very sad to say. I mean,
Yeah.
we've lost a lot of people in the years last, we
And
lost
some of it doesn't
Loretta
even make any
Lynn.
sense. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense that that would happen, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, it happens. I mean, it's the music industry. It can be a very evil place right now.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's always been evil, but I mean, getting into it and doing the stuff that, it was a passion. I know that when, you wanted to get out there and get in the glory and do your thing, but after a while, it just seems like, hmm, I don't know, like, do I really want to go that distance? Do I really want to, be a star? Do I really want to go through all those, you know, and everybody wants to. I think it's more like I want to be rich. I want to be, I remember one time in a conversation that you and I had, and believe me, for me to remember this, it's
Mhm.
rare. But I remember one time when we were talking about, if you were to break in, you didn't want to go out and buy a house. You wanted to fix up the house that you had. You'd say, I'd just rather spend the money on my house I have,
Yeah.
and build this and build that and put in something new. And I was always admired. You weren't like, you know,
Well, if you ever notice that a lot of people will be successful and then they'll go and they'll try to buy this XYZ to try to impress somebody and
mhm,
then they can't afford it and it's really sad because they earned all that money and then they can't pay for the things that they have
that's right.
in the end. So if you stay in the home that you have, then you can build onto that home little by little and like it becomes better and better and better.
A home's a home. That's just
Yeah.
like, right now I'm doing a lot of remodeling on my home. I'm putting a new roof on, putting new floors down, and everything it's basically just like, a prayer. When I pray to God and I ask God, I go, I really, I need a new roof. I need to find a way to be able to do it. And he found a way, and I was able to buy all my material, and I'm gonna have a new roof on my house here soon. I got all new flooring that's gonna be going in, and all this stuff that's actually happening right now is just amazing. But unfortunately, what's going on now in our world right now is a very scary place.
It is. And without Jesus, I don't think that uh, anybody would be able to make it or handle the stress from it. Probably just really just I'm not even sure what it would do, but like I know that without Jesus you can't do anything. Without God you can do nothing. So
That's
like
right.
and you need them on your daily walk and so
Hmm.
like just every minute like because you don't know what's going to happen next. People are cutting people off on the road and jumping in front of you, uh, even we had recently somebody hacked our account. It wasn't for a large charge, but it was for like $24. And they used Bo's name, but then they used some kind of weird email. So they somehow are able to hack into people's information.
Yeah, got to be careful this day and age. It's like really, really, you got to just be careful. You know, you have uh, a story, and and going through your whole, life and stuff like that, and you talk about, your relationship with God and how you came to find Christ. And, you've been through a rough time and you went through some abusive time in your life and, uh, and the struggles that you went through. And that's kind of like, I think people would be interested in hearing your testimonial on how you found Christ and, what was your journey to where you're at right now. So,
Well, I grew up. I'm not an only child. I have a younger brother who's about 5 years younger than me,
mhm,
and my dad was a Vietnam vet, and he worked very, very hard. But I won't go into it. But things were difficult. Parents didn't get along, so that caused tension in the household. And then they were divorced by the time I was like 12 or 13, maybe somewhere in there.
mhm,
And from there, my mom was single. And so that's where you start to see struggles. You start to feel like real hunger, like sometimes me and my brother be fighting over like a can of corn or some noodles or something, it's funny.
mhm.
But and we'd find fun things to do too, like put my mom's pantyhose on the ceiling fan and whatnot. But like she came home and she was kind of feeling down, but she was like, "What the world happened here?" And she was laughing pretty hard. But that being said, just feeling really depressed and down and just feeling like I was always feeling that way, like uh, that somehow I was singled out, like I um, was different than everybody else or something like that. Like I wasn't loved or something. I just felt that depressing feeling that we feel before we know God.
Mhm,
And it feels so isolated and alone. And then I just always kind of felt that God was with me. But, and I even at 9 years old, I knew I was going to do like the music and the radio and stuff. I knew that. But like, uh, other than that, when I got to about, uh, I guess I was 19 and I was pregnant, 19 and pregnant. And I had my first daughter. And then that was a hard struggle. I married a guy out of high school, very good looking guy, very nice. We were very much in love, but decided to break the law. And that's where my journey starts. We moved to Tennessee. We moved to Hermitage, Tennessee from North Carolina.
mhm,
And I was there for music. He took me out there for music because he heard my voice and he was like, "We got to get you out here. We think that you're going to do really well and this is going to be good." And so he supported the music career and everything. And so uh, I was in the apartment alone and I just felt like God just pulling me. It was almost audible to go to this church that was right in front of our apartments over there. It
mhm,
was Cherry Creek Apartments, and I was looking to go there, but I was kind of arguing with God. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was kind of like, no, this isn't real. I'm not really supposed to do that. So it got kind of a little bit louder. It wasn't like you're gonna die if you don't do this, but it was like more like this is so important. So I started going to the church. I walked me and my daughter over to the church and with a stroller and everything, walked her over there. And we went in there and immediately we were accepted and welcomed it was a Baptist church. And so, and I was, like I said, there was a lot of things that I won't go into in my childhood that was just really hard. Uh, there's reasons that I had wonderful parents, but everybody, just because people make mistakes doesn't mean they weren't great, wonderful parents. You know what I mean? So,
No, that's understandable because, like when we're growing up and during our childhood and stuff, our parents,
of course,
our parents go through the same, trials and tribulations that we're going through. They go through the same struggles. They go through all this other stuff. And we don't really recognize that until we get older. We don't really understand what it's like, and we don't understand what they went through because when we get older, then we start to, you know, how hard was it for our parents, like my parents, like, having all these kids and how they struggled, to put food on the table and stuff like that and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, I can understand,
so yeah,
being
like
mom. Yep.
when I look at how hard other kids had it growing up, I realized that it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? I realized that it wasn't as bad as a lot of people have had it. Being poor though, we struggled. It was rough. But then once I had my daughter and I had started going to church, I wound up getting baptized. I think you and I were kind of talking about that earlier
Hmm.
about the baptism, and so we got baptized, and um, I immediately I felt changed. I felt like everything was different. But then I started to ask God questions. And one of the questions that I asked, I said, God, if you really want me to, be close with you, why are you allowing my husband to do the things that he's doing? And I probably shouldn't have asked that. It was not even a month or two. Um, he was arrested.
Mm.
And I mean, I won't go into it, but we were out in Michigan and then we were visiting his sister.
Yeah,
And then
Michigan.
next thing you know, he was arrested.
Oh wow.
And so
Yeah,
he
that's gotta
was in
be tough,
Flint for a
especially being
while.
a mom with a baby and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I think this was around about 98 or 99, somewhere in there.
Hmm.
And then I moved where his mom lived because, of course, he was high school sweetheart. I stuck it out,
Hmm.
and I moved where his mom lived, me and my daughter, and his mom really took care of us. I mean, she just loved me and took care of me. And I kept in contact with the church, for a little while, and then kind of drifted apart because I was living in a whole nother state. I had even moved from Tennessee into Pennsylvania. So, and then I would live there about a year, and it was a neat experience. I got to sing at one of the bars they had. It was a very small town, and so I got to sing at one of the bars and all that, and it's kind of interesting. And then from there, I went back home because I was homesick. And then I got he had like a 5-year sentence. So I didn't wait. Unfortunately, I did not wait. And so I divorced. Um, and then me and my daughter, we moved back. We had been living with my dad. And
Hmm.
so, and so we were living with him and he took good care of us. And then we moved to, I'm trying to think, we
Well,
moved
let
to,
me ask you a couple questions. So, during that time when you were like in a transition, when you were like, at that point where you had to, like your relationship with God, was there ever a time when you were like you would question God, well, why are you allowing my husband to make these mistakes? You know? And so with that being said, during that time, were you like putting all that faith into God at the time, or were you kind of just like not unsure, like maybe he was there, but maybe he wasn't there, or maybe you felt like you were being punished, or the relationship you had with God because you were going through all this?
all of that, even down to, childhood and how mom and dad didn't get along, and
Hmm.
and then mom and dad not getting along. And then my dad was wonderful, by the way. He as a grown up, my dad completely changed. He started reading the Bible all the time and telling me about, Bible verses and different things. He was so supportive about the Bible. So he enforced that. My mom, when I was a little child, she had done that as well.
Hmm.
And so
So they were
uh
planting the seeds for you.
it was there. But I was in anguish all the time. I can't say that sometimes I don't feel that way, but I feel like a completely different person from the person that I was to the person that I am now. I
Hmm.
was in complete turmoil. I mean, fear, a lot of it, even though I was saved and I believed, I didn't know exactly maybe what that meant, like to actually believe.
See,
That
that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, when we were talking about being baptized. You remember
mhm.
that? And that's exactly the example what I was talking about. Like when you get saved, when you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, that feeling inside, you just know, like when you get saved, I'm saved. I'm saved. I'm saved. But then you start to question and see what's
Yes, that's what
happening.
happened.
When you start to question that, see, that's when the enemy is coming in and putting those thoughts into your mind and saying, hey, really? Are you saved? Are you sure you're saved? Are you sure you're doing this? Are you sure you're doing this right? And, and then, like, even sometimes, like when like if you, pray out loud to God and you're making these prayers and all of a sudden the enemy says, oh, I found something I could use against her. I can do this. I can do that. So you had to have struggled with that. And you know what? The good thing about it is everybody does that.
Yeah, everybody
Everybody
does.
has those same struggles because it's, even I did. I mean, there was this time when, real quick, there was this time when I remember when I knew I was saved. I knew I had a relationship with God. Exactly what you're saying. I knew I had this relationship with God, but I, I didn't know if I was actually doing it right.
Exactly. That's the feeling that I had so much. And sometimes I still get it. Um, but like the thing is, I've lived so much and seen so much that it changes. So it
Hmm.
lasts less time because like when it comes down to it, what you've seen and what you know is what you know, and it starts faith just starts building over time. And it's
Right.
God who does it in us through the Holy Spirit. It's not the workings of ourselves at all. And so that's what happened. So as I was going through, my husband, my second husband that I met him on the beach. And so after I was divorced with the first husband, and then that's when I completely, it felt like I did a backslide. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it felt like that because like you you drink more and you accept things that they're doing that are not acceptable, like uh, trying a recreational drug or whatever, and you think, well, I'm not going to do it. I don't do it. I don't, I'm not addicted to it. So it's fine, and then you feel so bad. And I thought, well, he's a good guy. He pretended like he was a good guy, and he probably was. He was just tormented on the inside from a very horrible childhood, it turns out.
Hmm.
And so, um, and this is not to badmouth him at all. I know in the past I've probably done that, but like forgiveness is super important. And we do have to forgive each other, like you were saying earlier as well. We have to forgive one another if we want forgiveness. And so, like, grudge on anybody at all. And hopefully, no one holds a grudge on me.
Well, the thing, see, here's the cool part. You know, going through all this stuff, and me, where I'm at right now in my life and how things have changed and everything that's is going good, and those thoughts that you have in your mind, and you're wondering if I'm still doing it right. Am I
Yeah.
still doing it? Even when your second husband came into you, and you said, well, I backslid. Well, a lot of times in your heart, here's something that I'll point out what you just said, and I think you might realize you said it, but here's the cool part. See, if you had never been saved and have given your heart to the Lord, then that feeling of what you just said is, well, I'm just going to partake. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
addicted to it, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to do it, you know, and maybe ask for forgiveness later.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because see, you had a relationship with God. You knew you were doing bad. You were naughty, naughty, naughty. But then again, you were like, I don't, I actually, I can say this with confidence. I don't think there was ever a time that you uh ignored God. You knew you were doing
And
what you
that
were
would be
doing was
correct.
wrong.
I mean,
Huh?
I knew and I let God see. I think that's important too, is let God talk to God in the middle of the bad that you're doing. Don't block God out at any time because
Mhm.
he's the only one that can help you. You're not going to be able to save yourself during those bad times. And that's just true. Jesus Christ is the way to salvation.
Right, right. So when you were going through that part with your second husband, and you called it backsliding. So
So
what
what
happened?
happened? Okay, so this is how we met. I went to the beach one day, and it's about an hour away from my dad's, and so I packed up my daughter and me. We went to the beach, and so while we were on the beach, I met this guy, and he kind of like was like, hey, to all the girls, because all the girls were like looking at him and all that, and then he came and sat down next to me and started talking to me. And at first I was like, no. Mm-mm. But then after a while, we started talking more. And then later that night, because he asked me for a date, and then later that night, and it seemed like the perfect date. And so it was probably we lived together about 2 year, almost, well, 1 year, and then I was pregnant after a year, and so then I was pregnant with my second daughter,
Mm-hmm.
Megan. And then so I had her, and before, I think it was right before I had her or after. I think it might have been, yeah, it was after. It started getting a little abusive. Um Not sure why. There was drinking, and I know that there was, some marijuana involved, but like there was a lot of drinking on when I wasn't pregnant, on my part as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it just spiraled into a heavier drinking. He could drink as much as maybe 24 beers. He no
Whoa.
longer drinks at all. Thank the Lord that that's changed in his life as well. But like he could drink as much as 24 beers in one night. And
That's a lot of
yes, and he
liquid.
worked he worked very hard. Both of the husbands, now that been in forgiveness of people and not thinking that, you holding a grudge and stuff, both of them are pretty good. That it wasn't where my life should have gone, because for me, being that I was a believer, I should have been with another believer. So
There you
I think that's where the spiral took place. And so um shortly after that, then I was pregnant again. My daughter was 9 months old when I was pregnant with my son, and that my son Jonathan. And so that's my third child. And so I was had two kids. He started getting more violent after that. So I was married, three kids, because I already had Cindy. So I had Cindy, Megan, and Jonathan. And what to do, because now you know you've already gotten divorced once, and look at you. That's the things that was going through my head. Look at you. Look at all the mistakes you've made. And I was like, well, somehow, some way, God's gonna help me, get out of this situation, because we would be sitting there and things would be fine a lot of times, and then he would get angry over small things, maybe pork chops that the kids didn't want to eat, and slamming the plates because I said the kids didn't have to eat the pork chops. They had a horrible sauce on it. I don't remember what that was, but it was not good. And he threw the plate across the table, and a piece of the plate landed in my son's bassinet.
Oh,
And I thought, what am I doing? And I stayed. I stayed still. And we moved to another house. And at the time, his brother had started staying with us before we moved. And then later, his brother came over to the house a lot. Well, one night I was taught, he had hit me here and there, thrown things, kind of stuff like that before. But one night he told me, one night I was staying up because his brother knew that I got hit all the time. So his brother was kind of like, I guess it was sympathy too for me. He
hmm,
was kind of like, how men want to protect. And I
right.
think his brother just kind of fell for me that way. And he he said, well, um, that if you weren't married to my brother, we would be married or whatever. He said that to me. And so like I sat up and talked to him, but all I gave him was a hug and went to bed. Well, because I had talked to him all night, my husband got mad. We were out in the open in the kitchen next to the bedroom. There wasn't nothing going on. Well, he didn't believe me.
Hmm.
He threw in a rage, and he stopped talking to me, and he started drinking more, and he would get on the video game and play that and play that. And then, so this is all going through my head. Maybe God thinks that I deserve this because I've had this now twice. I've
So
had
you thought you were
abuse.
being punished.
I did, because like this is my whole life.
Mhm.
Okay. And then how is this my life? And why does God see me like that? I mean, um, but that was all lies from the devil. It was not anything that was true. God was strengthening me so that when I have talked to somebody who's going through something, I can care. I mean, that is so important that I think a lot of times we've lost the ability to care.
Oh, that's that. Yeah, well, it it happens, especially when you are scorned and hurt, and the stuff, the abuse that you were going through. Because it had to been hard, and especially like when this is probably happening in front of the children, and you don't want your children to see what's actually going on.
Yeah,
Well, and
that's coming. That's what I was going to tell you. That part's coming in this. So it got increasingly worse. So he had threatened his brother. They had had a bloody fight, and it was pretty awful. And he had threatened me, and he started setting us down beside each other all the time. Way before that, he had there was nothing, and he was making something the whole time. So he was jealous of everyone. So everybody that I came near, he would get more jealous. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, what do I do? I was so confused. I didn't know if I could even talk to anybody. Sometimes you'll catch me, people know me outside. They might not get eye contact from me because it did condition me a little bit. Because it was like, who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them? Man or woman? And I'm a straight woman. And so like I didn't understand that. So like he would accuse me of a lot of people, and say things to them to try to entice them that way and stuff like that. And
hmm,
it was very psychological. So I had not tried to get away from him because it wasn't that bad. See, it wasn't that bad because I had I had been hit before. So what's the difference? Maybe everybody lives this way, is what I was
So
thinking.
so you're sitting there in your mind, you're going, well, he's knocking the snot out of me. He throws dishes. He gets in a fight with his brother. I can't talk to anybody, but that's okay. I think everybody's okay with that. See, I can understand that because honestly, you do realize that, and you do know this because you've been down this road, but after a while, you are lying to yourself.
Hmm. But you can keep that going a long time if you are subjected to that multiple times.
Hmm.
So, meaning that if you're subjected to it one, two, three times, but now you're being subjected to things like so many times you can't even count. And it's not just from one person. So,
Right.
then to further that, now you thought you were in a bad situation before, and before that, now you're looking at something seriously dangerous. And so like it's a wake up. So it's seriously dangerous. So the first indication of that it was gone too far, that it was and I hope that there's some women that this will help, but the first indication that it had gone way too far was when my mom came over and she was trying to talk to him, and she was trying to talk to me, and he was out of control. And I guess he just could not believe that I had not been with his brother, and he could not believe it. And he he was convinced. And so I kept telling him, "No, I love you." And that at the time, that was the God's honest truth. But yes, of course, if you're beating, you kind of think about if you would it be better somewhere else, but you don't play with it because you know that marriage is important. And so you just try to stick it out. Maybe he'll change.
Right.
That's a
Right.
lot of what women will say is maybe he'll change. And so that's why I brought my mom over. So my mom was talking with him, and she looked at me and she said, maybe you should go, to me. And I just was like, um, I don't want to go. So I didn't go. And so then uh I guess it was a few weeks, and it got weirder. Like his weirdness around his brother, his brother and mine's weirdness around each other got weirder, but nothing went on. But we were just like, oh my gosh, what is going on? We just kept looking at. He was like, I can't even talk to you right now. So it just drove it to us having a stronger like friendship. I don't know, but we couldn't even talk to each other. And so nothing had still gone on, and we were celebrating our anniversary. And um he seemed to be doing really good that night. And we went out to dinner, and we went to the bowling alley. I did pretty good, but we went to it went to pretty good. And then it was a lot of fun. And then we went home, and we were just kind of, doing what anybody does for anniversary. And we were in the living room. And then next thing you know, he gets up and said, "Get away from me. You make me sick." And I was like, what do I do? Did I say something I didn't know? I mean, what did I do? And I was like, "No, I love you, because it's our anniversary." And so he said, "Get away from me, or I'm going to kill you." And it was 1 second, and I was punched, and it was just like constant. And I was on the floor, and he was kicking me, and he was hitting me, and calling me all kinds of foul things. I don't even, I can't even say these things on air. Like, okay, but it's like, I mean, it was pretty bad. And then, um, there was more violence and more things that he made me do. And then finally, he went to attack me, actually to rape me. And he was doing so. And then he took his arm I mean, he took his from his elbow to here and put it right across here. across my temple really hard. And he did construction. And so when he did that, he put all his weight on it. And I prayed. I said, God, I guess I'm going to die now. And God on the inside said, no, not now. He told me. And it wasn't even a little bit of time. And he passed out.
Oh,
He
wow.
passed, he passed out. And a year and a half went by.
You
I had
didn't get
been
up
beat.
and leave then?
Listen, I was too scared. The
Oh,
things that went on for hours. And
oh.
so at that point, you're like, if you had tried to get away or like from somebody like this, you know they're going to follow you because they're completely obsessed. And I was right. I'll get into that later. I was right. I shouldn't. I probably I'm alive because I never ran too much at that
Gotcha.
time. I never ran, and plus, I think we loved each other at the time. I honestly do. I just think that he was so disturbed and covered it up with drugs and alcohol, and just not being able to live with the inside of himself. And anytime he did anything, it was always like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again." And it got after he did this though. I was My mom had taken the kids because it was our anniversary, and she had taken them. When she came back in, I it was summertime. She didn't notice. I covered it up with makeup. I had like have you ever seen like fighters or something that have like what's called a cauliflower ear?
Hmm.
I had purple and all different colors ear. You couldn't tell the shape of the ear. It's amazing that I have ears now. But they're
Horrible.
perfectly fine, but like they were just like it was just like meshed in like and so when I would walk, it was like I was walking steps like up. My equilibrium was like way off. So like I just sat there with makeup covered and with like long sleeves and long pants and just had myself covered up and I just sat there and you know mom just probably thought I was just a little bit lazy when she brought the kids in. And so but I had went into another room right after he did that. And then I came back in there the next day in the room, which I was horrified to do, but he was like, I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. I know what I've done to you. It's disgusting and all that stuff. And kind of made me feel like if I told anybody what was going on, it made me feel like that that world would judge me because I'm with such a man like that around
Mm.
my kids. And so I didn't know what to do. And I trusted the kids less around him. I mean, I trusted him less around the kids, is what I really mean to say. And so the poor children, they probably got neglected a lot more than they needed to during the day when I was at home because I didn't work at the time. I would take care of them and give them lots of attention. But once I knew he was going to be home, you know, big sister, go in there, y'all go in the room and mom loves you and just close the door. And I moved his computer and everything from the living room into the room after that because I was terrified that somehow, you know, maybe what if something else happened mentally and he couldn't, it's just a lot of fear because if he had done that to me. And so I got a job and started working because I had decided that I maybe wanted to leave. And he would be abusive to me some. And while I was working at Belk, one of my managers, Marilyn, she she had red hair. She was really a fiery lady, but she told me we would get into it. I was like, you don't treat people right and all that. And she goes, well, I'm going to be frank with you. I think your husband is abusive to you because she said, I do appreciate your honesty because you're right. I need to quit this job. But she said, I think your husband abuses you. And that's where it was a reality, because now somebody knows, now somebody has noticed it. Um, and so uh, I had worked my way up. He started working with me at Belk some on the side. My husband did, and he got to know everybody, and that's how they noticed. Um, he was only working there part time, but they started to notice that. And then I'm trying to think. Well, my mom, they were my whose birthday was it? I think it was mine, or it was somebody. I think it was. And my brother was over, and so it just my mom gave me a car, and it was like a Buick. No, it was Cutlass Sierra. I'm trying to tell the truth the best I can, and so it's hard to remember everything. It's so many
That's
details.
fine. That's fine.
Um, but it was a nice car. It just was very old, and so I had transportation because I had given up everything I had for this man. I had traded in the car because we have two kids together, and I had done all these things. And so um at Belks, I was doing good. I would kept doing good. And in a year and a half, I was doing extremely good. Now I can support myself. And my mom gave me a car, which is something that would have been the problem. And so we were having a party. And I don't know why. That night, I probably acted like the worst person ever. Everybody that was over there, I was doing the exact like what he was accusing me of. I wasn't being promiscuous, but I was just like hugging and like hi and all this stuff to all of them. And uh he just kind of stayed in the room. He started isolating and stayed in the room a lot. So I don't think he even noticed that. I was doing that out of spite, but I don't think he ever noticed that. But my brother stayed after that, and uh for about maybe a week, I think. And so we were sitting there, we're gonna watch videos together, and he goes and cuts the DVD player off. And then I turn it back on. And then because my brother's sitting there, my brother's a tough guy. He's not like little. So it's like he said, "Why did he do that?" I said, "I don't know." I mean, we're not talking about a little guy here. My husband was not little. So like it's like, and my brother's not little. So I'm like, between me and my brother, we could probably handle this. And so so he came back in, turned it again, trying to control. And so turned it back on. Next thing you know, he comes back in, he's flipping chairs, he's slamming things over, and he is irate. And so my brother finally pinned himself against the wall. My brother had been military police, and he does like security, but it's like being a police officer for Hilton Head Plantation.
Right, right.
So he does that. And so, like, um, he was up against the wall because he didn't know what to do. And so uh, he called the police. He kept going, "You want me to call? You want me to call?" I said, "Not yet, not yet." Finally called. Then when the cops get there, he's acting crazy. And they're like, "You know that he cannot do this to you. You don't deserve this," and all this stuff. And I'm like, um, I need to ask, because I wasn't sure. I thought that you could just, rape your wife and it was fine. Like, because that's your wife, you can treat her however you want to. And so I asked, and he said, "Wow, that's out of my jurisdiction, but um, you've got something here." So um, I went through a women's shelter, like they helped me with counseling a little bit.
So you left then.
He went to jail for the domestic violence, but not for the rape. Yeah, he went for the domestic violence that night, attempted domestic violence.
I got you.
And so, and he was very drunk. Um, uh, I think at any point, and this is actually funny now that he's come to know the Lord better. I'm sure he'll laugh at this one too. He was asking, uh, what did Elvis say to the cops? Like what did Elvis say? Like, and they were like, they said nothing but a hound dog, and he was like, no, Elvis says, like that. And then
Uh,
I don't know, it was just kind of goofy, and so he went to jail, and while I was in jail, um, uh, his uh, his brother and me, we started seeing each other. We were angry. It wasn't planned, so we started seeing each other. And I had a lot of judgment for that. Like you're a horrible, horrible person, and yes, that's a horrible thing to do. But if you look at the circumstances where I was kind of like, I don't know, coached to do this, so finally when we started liking each other, because he would make comments like you like her, you like that, stuff all the time, before that. And so we started dating, and I had a hard time with that. Back, 1 minute I would think I'm doing the right thing by leaving this abusive husband, and the other minute I would think I need to go back. And I was very confused. And at that point, you're so attached to the family and to
right,
everybody, you just don't want to leave. And I think that might have been part of the reason why that happened, is because you don't know where to go or where to turn to. And because you're in so much turmoil. And for me, Ben was the only person that's seen most of the abuse. For everything else, it was like, uh, he he looked like a wonderful person. Everybody liked him, and so, um, and he probably is now. When you come to know Jesus, it does change everything about you.
right, right.
But so going from there is, we lived together and stuff, and so my ex-husband would follow me. He would follow me. He would show up different places and stuff like that. So Ben goes, maybe you should go. You guys, he's calling a lot and all, and you guys are married. Maybe you should get back with my brother, because I don't want to steal, his wife. But he said, even
So
though it was a little,
basically, what he did is he got what he wanted from
you would
you.
think that, but there's more to the story.
Uh,
So what he really just felt was, he felt like they had both had a horrible childhood. So
mhm.
they had lived in an orphanage and in and out of an orphanage and stuff. And so it was very hard for them. And so they did not live together. So Ben was they were raised quite differently, somewhat,
Right.
from what I understand from them. Um uh so after while I went back to Thomas, and the biggest thing was that I kept asking, I said, is there something that you can change, like telling the truth to people? Can you just not make me look like a flat out liar, like I'm just this horrible person that just went after your brother? Can you just tell them that I'm not making this stuff up, like I didn't do anything? He was like, he would start to tell them and then not tell them the truth, and then say that, kind of make it out like it's not, it's
Right.
me. It's me
Hmm.
who caused it. And so after that, I went back to Ben. I was so confused after the rape, and after getting a chance to get away, that I just didn't know I was in a controversy, like a push pull. And the reason why I open up this much is because I don't think it's going to help anybody if you leave a lot out.
Well, that's actually why we're here. This is part of your journey. So yeah, I'm actually, you know, uh, when I hear this story, actually, you told the story not in quite detail, um, back when we were on the radio show. Actually, it was um first time I interviewed you, if you remember that. And it had to been hard. It sounds to me like, you were very much in a very abusive relationship. But the question I have for you like I said, you got to be honest here, is do you think that possibly, in your mind at that time, did you ever like say to yourself, you know, I did you ever like want to turn, like, say, I'm just going to turn everything over to God at all? Did you just kind of like completely, like, you were so and caught up in this turmoil that you kind of like
It was like a
put God
um
aside?
fight, a lot of fight and flight turmoil, and just thinking I'm the worst person in the world. That's why these things have happened to me. I
Mm.
must have thought something wrong. I must have felt something wrong, and that's why this happened.
Oh, wow.
Or
Okay.
yeah. And so like because if you have parents that fight and argue and they say things, I don't know a single household who hasn't had like a parent who hasn't said something they really
So
don't
you
mean.
thought this was normal.
I did. My parents fought very bad. They did not get along. Like we did not get along.
Hmm.
And so you know, they had for years and loved each other dearly. And both of them were about as wonderful of parents they could have been. But I think that there was a lot of struggle in the 80s to try to keep up with the Joneses and
Oh
to,
yeah. Yeah.
and I think that women felt that more than the men. And so they would spend,
Hmm.
and then it would start from there. It would start to cause more and more problems for the men, and then the men would get angry, and you can see why.
Okay, so so you went back to, so in your mind, going back to his brother was, I mean, you
So
went
I
back.
thought I was doing bad every time. So, and he did too. His brother did too, because uh, you got to understand, I did kind of leave a little bit out. I mean, not really, but like he used to. So there was a porch on his brother's house where he was staying,
Hmm.
and there was chairs, and he would take me and set me next to his brother really close, and me and him would just sit there and go, what? And he would just do that. Go sit next to him because that's who you really want to be with, or something like that. Some statement is, and so like after a while, we're like, maybe he's right, I don't know, but we lived together for close to 2 years at the end when I
Hmm.
finally stopped going back. Before that, before we finally moved in together, um his his Thomas, my husband at the time, he this is kind of hard.
That's
he
fine. Take your time.
Yeah, he kind of like, I was off, and I was at Ben's visiting, um and it was one of the reconciliation times, and I had told him, you're going to have to sleep in the other room, and he didn't like that. And so I think he started picking at the kids a little bit because he was didn't know what to do either. And so uh my daughter was arguing with him, I'm sure, something. I'm not sure, but he was in the complete wrong because she didn't deserve to be picked at. And so he scratched her face. It was like a tiny scratch, and I didn't give a dang. That's the scratch. Now you've hit my daughter. You've been beating the hell out of me, but at least I could keep my kids safe. And then, you know, I saw that when I came home. He had been calling profusely and all that stuff. And so he thought I was drinking when I got home, and I hadn't been drinking anything. And I'll admit that living there after the abuse started, I drank like twice as much, twice as much.
Right, right.
And so like I was trying to drown all those memories were really bad. So like I was trying to just pretend like they didn't exist. That's pretty much uh like living in my own cloud or something.
Hmm.
And so um then after that I saw that he had hit her. And so I was talking to him right before that and I hadn't seen it yet. And then I looked over and saw it. And so once that happened, I just flew off. And I had taken kickboxing and like self defense after the first time that he had hit me, and the little bit of kickboxing after he had been arrested because they said, "You're scared of him. We're going to make sure that you're not scared of him anymore." And it was funny because, Rob, I could not coordinate to kick the ball. I couldn't do any of that stuff. I was so bad at it. And I didn't take many lessons. I don't even remember how many, maybe one or two. But between that and the 2 hour course I took, well, no, that was probably like a few day course at the Fight Like a
Hmm.
Girl. But they had a like dojo and all. It was pretty cool. And so between those two and God's help was the number one thing, I was able to fight. So now he's going, well, go ahead, hit me, because he's pretty feeling pretty guilty about now because like he's feeling pretty miserable.
Did
And
you
I
pound him?
understand that. Huh?
Did you
So
pound him?
we did start hitting him and kicking him and whatnot, me and my daughter. And because she's like, I can't remember even how old she was at the time, maybe 11, 12, somewhere in there.
Hmm.
And so she's doing it too. And I'm like, we got this. And then he starts trying to fight back and go in and break something of mine, which was a tactic. And so he tried to do that. And I took the door and kicked it in his face. And he called the cops on me. He was like, I'm calling the cops. You'll never see your kids again. I'm going to take them from you and you'll never see them again. And so, like, that's the whole argument prior to that was a lot of that. Like, you're
Hmm.
never going to see if you leave me, you're never going to see your kids again. And so, uh, after that, the cops came and I go, whoa, I'm going to be arrested. And so, like, I'm really going to be arrested. I've never been arrested before. I think I'm going to go to jail now. And so, um, I was pretty mad at him because he had made that little scratch, but like he's trying to pick on her now. And so I was just really worried about it. And she told me, because he would do punishments sometimes, like you have to stand in the corner for an hour or 2 hours every day for like 3 months or something. It would be some weird
Oh,
punishment.
oh,
It
oh.
would be like, or 30 minutes or something crazy, like with a book on your head or something crazy. Like, and so, like, I'm like, no. But, at the time, I didn't even think that that was that horrible because, we wouldn't really make her stay in there that long.
Hmm.
So, but the thought of it, and so, um, but he was mostly very good to the kids as far as anything I know. He was mostly very, very good to the kids. And so, just mean to me. And so, but it was always a fear of mine. And when I saw that, I got really upset. And so the cops came. There was a lady officer, and some of the officers that had been there before were accompanying them. And so they, of course, there's a little more details in there, ins and outs, but like this is the gist of it. And so I was sitting on the couch and the officer said, what happened? I said, well, he hit my daughter and there's a little mark on her. I said, if you leave, I said, you need to get him out of here. And they said, we can't make him leave. This is his house too. And I said, okay, if you don't make him leave, then I'm going to kill him. And which was a very unchristian thing to say. I'm not denying that, but I knew that I had to get him out of the house no matter what, because he's dangerous. And so like uh they said, you can't, ma'am, you can't say that. You can't say that. No, they didn't do anything to me, thank God. And I started kind of praying on the inside. And I said, God, please help me, you know. And so this was really funny. It's God has a sense of humor, I think. A lot, very good. So what happened was he had gone down with the cops and they had been talking to him. And he said, she's been drinking, she's irate, and this and that. And they came up and said, ma'am, can we test you for alcohol? I said, of course. Um, so a thought popped in my head, hilarious thought, just all of a sudden, exactly what to do. Let's be fair though. Let's test him for alcohol because I knew that I hadn't drank anything. So I did the test, zero point 0.0. He did the test. It was 3 times the legal limit. And so they were like, he's probably legally dead or whatever. They put him in jail. And so that's when, yeah. And so um that was the end of that. And so like with between that and the court finally said there was other court cases and times where they had said, you know, this and that, but this time they said, this family, you need to stay away from this family, sir, because if you don't, they're going to kill you. Like, and so like he stayed away. And so um that was the end of that. He did follow me around a lot, saying that I had a protective order and he would follow me and harass me and stuff. And that lasted for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He would go at the back of my work and call people names. The protective order really doesn't do a lot. That's why, you know, the kickboxing really helped. Like at the end, but like then live with Ben, and then all of a sudden it got in my idea that I was going to move to Nashville, Tennessee to do my music. I mean, because the whole time that we were together, I used to try to sing, and he would say, nobody's ever going to want to listen to you. You can't sing, and you're not going to ever do anything. You're never going to be
Wow.
able to. He said, you're never going to, yeah. And he would laugh at me. And so, like, I would feel so down about myself. And I said, maybe he's right. And maybe I'm not that good, you know? And so, I mean, because, you know, I listen to myself and I'm not liking what I hear, you know, all the time. That's how people are, you know, when they sing,
Right.
they're always the critical, you know? And so, um, I had finally decided, yeah, I wanted to do that because Ben was telling me, he was like, you can do all kinds of things. You'll, you know, and there's more to that story too. He had a car accident and Ben did and wrecked my car. There's a lot to that, but mostly all the stuff that Ben like had built up in me before I left. He had told me that, you know, you can do anything. You know, there was no abuse there. But there would be episodes like in my mind where I would think that Ben was doing something. Like it would be like a flashback and my daughter would be standing there and she'd be like, uh, he didn't do anything. Why are you getting mad at him? So I like sprayed him with pepper spray one time or whatever, like right after the event, you know, like within the 2 years of the event, because I was always on adrenaline rush, it seemed like, always fearful of just everything for a longest time.
Scorn.
Uh,
You were,
and I
you
know
know,
that everybody
and
goes
it's
through
really, it's like, wow, I'm sitting here like, and it's funny because you're thinking about all this stuff and all the thoughts that are going through your mind at this time. And, and did you like at any time did you just decide when it was time to, did you move? I mean, did you make the decision to move then or?
So no, Ben said that if I went, that he wasn't supposed to go with me, so he was going to stay. And so he was like, if you stay, I'll be here, but like if you go, you're going to do other things. He said, I just know you are. And so um and so I just from that situation I moved to another house. And from there, I started doing like a lot of music around the house, like around the community. Like bunches of people would come over to the house and listen to me sing. From there, would like sometimes they would just move in and like cook or clean or, and just take care of me. All I had to do was sing.
Mm,
And so they would take care of the kids. And I thought, well, as soon as I get to Nashville, it's going to be set, right? And
right.
so, I'm not thinking level headed at this point. And so I struggling with bills anyways. And so I said, well, maybe I'll just ask uh, my work if I can get a transfer. And I had prayed, God, if this is what you want me to do, then make this easy. And it was easy because I couldn't stand to be in the same area as my ex because he would not, even though he was trying to speak nice to me and talk to me and all that stuff and talk to the kids, he would never admit what he had done to me in front of anybody. So it was just like our dirty little secret that we can't talk about. And that's what I really would hope for him, is because there's a lot of men that are struggling that may have even done something like this. I don't even think that your life is over. I mean, read the Bible, you know? And so, like, murderers got forgiven and all this stuff. And Jesus came to save us all. So, God can use him to help these men or help prevent this kind of situation from arising
Right,
more
right.
closely. And I've
Amen.
always believed that. I've wanted to tell him that, but it's difficult to say. You know what I mean?
But you're
So
saying it now.
yeah, I'm saying it now. But don't be afraid of being prosecuted because nobody's gonna do it. And so all you got to do is go out there and tell people. And so there's a lot of people that can be saved by somebody who's been on that side, because there's no judgment for that sinner when you talk to them because you've done the same or close.
Right,
So
right.
and so yeah, I was ridiculed a bit about the being with my husband's brother a lot. Even when Ben had his accident, I was told that I was going to hell and that
Mm.
how horrible of a person and I'm disgraceful. His family did the same to me while Ben was in the hospital, and he also went in a coma for a while because he had hit his head. He had hit a tree going 80.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
that's smart.
I was there for that too. I saw that in the car behind him. Uh, we had, there was a lot of things that I did in those days that I would not do today.
I
Maybe
think
drugs,
a lot of us will say
alcohol,
that. I think there's a lot of times I look back, I would never do that again.
a
It,
little bit of drugs, a little bit of alcohol is very bad and very bad for, it, and it wasn't, I justified it because I'm like, I'm not an addict of either. So I can control this, but it influences people even in small doses, that because if people are looking at you already as a role model, then it's very bad.
Mhm.
And so that's the thing that I feel worst about, is as being a bad role model for a lot of people.
That's yeah, it's kind of like I was telling my daughter, and I actually said this to I think one of my nieces one time. You are who you hang out with. You are, and then um it's like I think it was my sister. I brought it up to her one time. She smokes, and I go, well, look, and you now your daughter smokes, now your son smokes, now, you know, and your daughter-in-law's smoking, and you want to quit smoking. How are you going to quit smoking when you got all these people in your house smoking? You know, And she goes, well, I'm not responsible. I go, yeah, you are. You're the one who influenced them. You're the one, you're the one that's doing this. You're the one that's just like, like it's kind of like a person who's drinking all the time. This
But
person
I
drinks
don't
all the
think
time.
we can blame
They
them.
say, there's statistical numbers say like if you have a person like say you have a parent who's an alcoholic, the chances of one of the children turning out to be an alcoholic is higher than it is of a family who isn't. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. I mean, we all do crazy things. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but man,
Oh no, 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 no. I really want to hear about, what you went through as well because you've done quite a transition, like from when we were doing the
mm,
I know what God can do. I mean, God can do that. I
well,
mean,
look
he
at, yeah,
changes
I
the
mean, I mean, see, the thing about it is I look at this point, at some point in this story, it sounds like you're getting closer to when we started working together.
Yeah, exactly. And so at this point, well, I was at the I had rented a rather large house because I was like in a management like program at Belk, and I was making a lot of sales for them. And so a huge amount of sales, like getting people to open 700 credit cards and in 1 year. And so like stuff like that. And I was able to clothe the kids and just it was crazy. I was able to make it. And so
Good job.
yeah, well, God did it all. I didn't do anything. But like I didn't even have the strength to do it. I don't know where that strength came from. It could not have come from me. Now I look back and say, wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we all do that. I mean, there's like this one part in my life where I remember that I was going through a real rough time in my life, and I the at that point, that exact point when I could not do this anymore. I couldn't. I I remember I was driving truck at the time, and I'm driving down the road, and I'm just you actually know the story. We'll talk about it another time, but I I was at this point where I just never in my whole life had been hurt so bad, to have my whole life completely shattered, and to have everything just ripped out, and I didn't know what to do. All I know is I was crying driving this truck down the highway, and I just could not believe, and I just said to God, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to go through this. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it, but I can't do this. I cannot do this. And he he humbled me. He took away that anxiety, not that I didn't think about it, not that I wasn't, I was still hurt, but the hurt wasn't as bad.
Hmm.
And it was just like, it was kind of like a mended kind of a deal. It was like, it's not that I didn't care, it's just I cared peacefully.
Exactly. Like it's like you have all this anxiety and it's constant and it's nagging and then all of a sudden it's gone.
Yeah,
And it,
that's exactly it. And then all of a sudden people see you and they go, what? What's going on? You're going through all this stuff. Why aren't you a little bit more upset? nothing for me to be upset about. It's not me. And I put in God's hands. It's God's problem now, not my problem.
Now, there's some days if it's like a marital problem, it may not be that easy because it's like, well, I have to look at him all day, God, like we're gonna get in
Yeah.
an argument,
That's
sometimes
the
it's
time
like
you
that.
want to put a pillow over his face and go, "Argh."
No, no, I
Yeah.
don't want to do that, but I definitely want to give him a lecture for like 10 hours, like
Oh, yeah. Like
because
tie
it's
him to
like
a
I can
chair, right?
fix it's like he's so perfect. Other than this one little thing, I can fix this. Like this is good. I'll just keep trying.
Yeah.
And it's not for us to do. It's for us to love and love through it. And like despite how somebody's behaving, and so that's what I had thought about the abuse. But there is scriptures about that God does not like it when a wife is being abused.
That's right.
So that's one thing that
In
I
Peter, in
learned.
the book of Peter, Peter talks about that, about how a man should treat his wife, and stuff like that. And equally the wife should treat her
Oh
husband.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that, what is it? Be submissive. I don't, sometimes you just don't like to hear that, and then you think about it, and if it's what God said, it has to be good. It
Well,
has to be
submissive,
good.
okay, but see here, I wanna make you feel good about this, okay? Submissive has been tainted because it doesn't mean that you have to bow down and do that. It doesn't mean that. And Jesus didn't mean it that way. And God doesn't want you to be like, this it what it means is respect your
Exactly.
husband. It means, and but if you read in that same thing where it says to be, humble to your husband, be submissive to your husband, look at the scripture right
I
before
did. I did. And it says, so is
husband,
pleasing to the Lord.
right? And
So yeah.
husband, honor your wife as,
Yeah.
and that's
As
where.
Christ loved the church and gave himself up for it.
There you go. See, that's why I'm saying it's amazing. So, you went from this total abusive, you went back and played ping pong back
To
and
be,
forth between these two gentlemen, and now you're in this big house. You have a great job, you're making money, you're being able to take care of your kids. And
I've got
yet,
all these people coming over just to listen to me sing. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. Like,
there
what
you go.
happened? He said nobody would ever want to listen to me. Now I've got all these people. And then I had met a lady at Belk's. She is a relative of some other very famous people. Well, one other very famous person. Um, but she was in the music business out here. And so she came over to my house and didn't judge me. I wasn't like filthy, like, like on the inside, I just felt like God doesn't love me anymore.
Understood, understood. Yep. I know what you're saying. I know that's the thing. I know exactly what you're thinking.
She was so Christian, and she didn't look at me with judgment. Neither did her husband. They were like just loving. And I didn't understand that. I did not understand that anymore because uh, everything I went through. At one time, I thought I understood it, but it was for such a short time in my life,
Did you ever think like you're one of those people were there and you go, "Are you guys blind? Don't you see me? Don't you know that I'm this person? I
Hmm.
mean, how could you possibly? Are you blind? Like,
Yeah, can't you see how evil I am? That
yeah,
goes in your head. And can't you see how messed up I am? I'm not worthy of this.
very, yeah.
And so, um, and you were telling me about that earlier that, you don't feel, you would just tell Jesus, I'm just not worthy. And that's how we all have to be. I think God gets us there humbling
Hmm.
because in my teenage years, I thought a lot of myself. I did. I had a lot of pride. I thought a lot of myself as I
Right.
went along. You know what I mean? And so,
Absolutely.
like, you have to learn. to humble yourself or you can get humbled. And so it's better to do it. And so like I'm in that house and then, I have this friend and then I have a landlord and now he's getting another musician to come and live underneath the house on the bottom floor, on part of the bottom floor because I had the other part
Hmm.
for laundry and another living room. Actually, it was crazy big. It set on the water, and we would go on the dock and go swimming and do all that. And I had all that tranquility, like a little paradise for that little amount of time. And I had I was able to do music and everything. And the neighbor downstairs um, bought because I had a new boyfriend by then. And he bought him a set of drums and he bought a whole PA system for me to sing. And he would coach me. And we're still not sure who he was. We think he was big because, we're just not sure. But I mean, but then I looked it up and said he was a nurse. So it could have just been my imagination. So, but he was very good at music. And so he coached me and he kept working with me and I would be inside and he'd open up, he'd go all the way down the hallway, all the way past all the rooms, and he'd open up the door and he would say, I can't hear you, so you have to be louder. If I can't hear you out here, you're not loud enough. And he would keep pushing and keep pushing, and I got louder. And then the next day that I went to the store quite far away. And we did live on the canal, so sound carries across water, like that. So uh, they said, "We heard you last night." I said, "What?" They said, "You sounded really good." I was like, "You heard me from here?" And they said, "Yeah, we heard you. It was very good." And I was like, "What? What is happening?" Because I had been told, you can't you're not that good. And you know how parents are. They'll give you support and then they'll just say, like, oh, she's just got a little hobby, kind of.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
and they're not being bad. They're just my dad used to tell me how wonderful of a singer I was. Um, my mom not so much, but she would always go to all the events. And so but that being said, that's not as important as what we're trying to talk about.
No,
See, I'm
you're
getting
doing,
selfish again.
no, you're good. You're good.
and and so what happened was I told you I prayed and we got the transfer in a couple of minutes. The guy knew the at Belt knew somebody in Murfreesboro and she had trained him. And so I had a job in a couple of minutes. And he said, he come up to the counter and he goes, well, the transfer said if you want it, I'll give it to you. And I took it. I moved to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Um, I had a peg in my window, it was a wooden peg holding up the window because can't afford to fix the mechanics in the window, and it's summertime. And so now I was dating somebody else. See, I'm giving dirt here. So now I
Oh
was dating
man,
some,
you're a
yes,
little, boy, you're getting around, aren't
yeah. And
you?
so Sean, he could do everything. He could like do like he's married now. He's a wonderful person. I hope him and his wife are very happy. They got married at the same place as us, Pigeon Forge, or Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Yeah, they got married
Mhm.
over there. So um I hope he's listening or doing well. And so what happened was he actually gave me stability because it was like not like overbearing boyfriend, just kind of like calm.
Right, right.
And so like he fixed that peg in my window. So now I can go. And so um because he said you can't go anywhere without a window. You're in driver's side. That's really dangerous. So we did that and took off with a boyfriend, my oldest daughter's boyfriend at the time, because she would not leave with that. She put up a fight. And so she wouldn't leave. I think she was about 15. And
Oh
so
yeah, that's
they were
bad
already
age.
sneaking off together anyways, and I couldn't do nothing about it. I was going to lose my daughter, you know. So I took her and her boyfriend at the time with us. And we had the dog, 3 kids, me, and then the boyfriend and my boyfriend and the U-Haul. And so we took off, drove straight through all the way from North Carolina to Murfreesboro and did not stop because we couldn't afford it. And so on the way, I was sitting there. I was going leaving Carolina, going back to Tennessee, leaving the past behind, saying, you know, so it started there. So I wrote some of that on the napkins or whatever I could find. And so we moved it, we got in the apartment, everything was great. And let's see, I kept meeting different musicians and different people. I didn't know Bo yet. But Bo had planned on moving about the same time that I moved there, but he went to Texas instead.
Oh
So
wow.
he varied his plan too by a little bit, and God fixed it. He had
Mm.
already put a deposit down. I think he said Austin, and so he had already put a deposit down to live there. And so, because Austin's big music scene at the time, and maybe still is, um, so he decided I'm not going to stay here. All of a sudden it hit him. He's not going to stay here. And it was amazing. And he didn't want to go, I don't think. And he goes, I'm going to Tennessee. So he picks up, cancels everything, goes to Tennessee. And he moves to Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Oh wow.
And so, yes, around the corner from me. Like, so he's all the way from Utah and he was born in California and I'm from North Carolina. So we were worlds apart, you know, long ways. And so um I didn't know him. And then I started meeting different musicians. And the music career did not take off. Like I was like thinking, you know, I'm gonna get out here. I've had such a hard life. Now I can write about this, you know.
Hmm.
And so at that time, I'm thinking I believe in God, but I'm more focused on me. And I think not really realizing what is it all going to mean, what's going to happen, you know, and just not understanding
Right.
and just walking and just trying to live every day and raise the kids and barely making it because a little bit later they changed my pay from around 14 or well 12.90. I was making 14. Then the whole, you know, thing when Bush was giving that stimulus check out back
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
and then down to 12.90. And so I was at 12.90 when I moved, and plus um all the bonuses and everything I would get. And that was fine. But then they changed my pay again because the economy really got hit hard. And then they changed it to 8.24. They did that to everyone, or $8.25 an hour. It was 25.
Wow.
And so
They took away your pay.
yeah.
Wow.
So I laid in bed for 2 days, didn't go to work. I said, when they asked me, I was crying and I said, I'm not coming in today. I have a headache. And she said, I don't blame you. And she was there and she said, it's okay. And so, you know, then I start pushing more. Now I've got to do something. Now I've got to do something because like, you know, you're not going to make it the rest of your life on this little bit of money, you know, and you're raising 3 kids. How are you going to do this? So um around that time my daughter and her boyfriend broke up and she met this other guy. um it's now her husband,
Oh wow.
and so they've been together ever since she was like 16 years old. And so yeah,
Hmm.
and they love each other to pieces, and I have a granddaughter. So yeah, they so I had let against my better judgment, I was like, she's already had a boyfriend. Now I'm being a bad influence because I'm gonna let this other guy move in. But he put a tattoo with her name on it, and I was like, if anybody's dumb enough to do that, then they're definitely gonna stick around, because
Right.
it's huge. I mean, like it's not a little one either. It's big. And so I was like, he's gonna be okay. So, of course, when you have boyfriends and daughters and all teenagers, there's going to be arguments. So me and her got into it. I said he had to go at one point when about 17. And so she moved out and she lives with his parents for from 17 on. So, but uh, uh trying to think now. So I have one guitar player and I met him through somebody I knew at Belt. Um, and I met a bunch of people. Like one guy was connected with Jerry Lee Lewis. Uh, I I'm ashamed of myself. I can't remember all the names. There's
It's
so
okay. I can't either. It comes with old age.
I don't understand this, but I'm ashamed because like they would be probably hurt. I didn't remember, because they were so wonderful to me. But I remember them. But cooked me soup and all that stuff, like lentil soup. It was wonderful. Me and Bo, and then we went over to his place and we were doing all kinds of music and everything. And we just kept meeting people like that, just tons, so many, so many. And so now it's about the time that I met. Right before that, I met three different guitar players. None of those lasted for a super long time. And then I'm living with this other guy. Terrible, I know. Y'all are gonna be like throwing stones at me here. Um, uh, but and Keith, and he took me in with the
Mhm.
kids, and he said, "You don't have to work a lot. I'm gonna take care of you, and you don't have to work a lot." And so, uh, he did. He took us in, and he had this best friend, and his best friend was Jeff, and Jeff just so happened to be working with Bo at the time, and so Bo, I had lost that last guitar player who said my girlfriend wants me to spend more time and she doesn't want me spending so much time on the music, which I totally understand now, like because she
Yeah.
just loves them, right? And so like they worked he worked two jobs too. He was a hard worker. So it was just taking all his time. And so uh, then Jeff comes in the door and he goes, because I got to know him over time. And he said, I don't want you to quit music. He was like, I don't, that's not cool. Like, he was like, I've got somebody that I want you to meet. And I was like, what is this guy like? Is he some kind of crazy person or something? And so it turned out then so Bo called me and I was talking to him and he would go, I said, so I kind of just want to do an album, see where it goes. I want to get it out there and, push it out there as much as I possibly can and see what we can do. I want to do it for a living. And at the time, I was thinking, I want to be famous. I want all this stuff. I wasn't caring about the money as much as, I think I wanted to prove something
Right.
at the time. And it's funny how if you let go, that you get it quicker than you would if you didn't let go.
This is about the
you know,
time. Yeah, I think I remember this. This is about the time when we started working together too. When you
yes,
just started meeting Bo.
yep. And so me and Bo were working together, and yeah, because right after me and Bo got together, I met.
When you started you were just writing I think leaving uh What was the name of the
Wow, it's
song?
been that long, huh?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, we knew you in the other apartment, didn't we?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry, Rob. I didn't even remember that was that long. Yeah, I do now because weren't you the first radio that
Yeah.
I ever did?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you were the first one, and then there was Redneck, wasn't
Yep.
it?
Yep.
Redneck, well, yeah, Gumbo Ya radio show, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yep. Yep.
and then I think there was something out of Port Perry, South Australia,
Yep.
in
Yep.
FM station.
And then you started working with me on the shows and stuff while you were
I did.
leaving how you say it?
Leaving Carolina. It's
Leaving
got
Carolina. Yep. I
California in it.
remember when we debuted that on the show when I remember it. Yeah. And then I did your website for you.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And the website was really cool. And I was like, at this point now I'm getting a big head because they were like playing me with the big stars on the FM station in South Australia.
Mhm.
They were asking me to come live out there. And so like I'm getting a big head because I'm like, I got all these fans and and when you look back at it, it's like what was really important, I was missing right there. Like
Yep.
but God has a way of doing things that are exactly perfect in the exact time that He wants
And
them there.
we don't even know it and we don't acknowledge it.
No,
And see, that's exactly why I love this because you are my first person that I'm interviewing, and your journey is a lot like the journey where I think a lot of people out there are having the same thing where their life is going on and life is, is life is chaotic and good things start happening. Then when the good things start happening, we tend to forget God because
you know,
we tend to forget. Well, we don't forget him, but we don't put him first. And so what happens is when like you were talking, all this stuff is happening. It's exciting and it's, everything is going on, and then all of a sudden you
yeah,
just like
yeah,
someone brings up and because when we were on the radio show you said, oh, I just thank God for everything that I have, and I thank God for this, I thank God for that, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, I mean everything was good, but in that time frame it changes it, and
mhm.
everything that you did, everything with Bo, being with Bo, and all that stuff that you were going through that led you up to where you are right now.
Yeah. And if I had a lot of it to change, the thing that I would change the most is my kids. I think that a lot of times they were either neglected or, I might have been kind of short with them or
Mhm.
something. I guess every parent goes through that, but like for them, it was a lot of attention on me and it should have been on them. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yep. Well,
And
see, the
so
thing about it is have you ever asked them? Have you ever sat down and said to them, like for me, um,
my son says I was the greatest mom ever.
well, then what are you
Um,
worried about?
my daughter says that my oldest daughter says that, and she's right, because like for her, me and her dad had like such a beginning of a relationship that it should have been stayed together, so I get how she's feeling now, like,
Mhm.
and so like it hurts her to see me and her dad apart. And so I think that she had wished that, and there was an opportunity there after even moving to Murfreesboro for us to had gotten back together, and we didn't. And that was my choice because sometimes you just have to move forward.
Mhm.
And so, but I think she has a lot of hurt there, and so she thinks I could have done better sometimes, and I do too, and I'm very sorry for it. But she also um, thinks that I did the best I can. So, but yeah, there was a lot of attention and a lot of people and a lot of, and they could have gotten more attention. And that's why I'm glad with the other two that I was able to see that and kind of just lay back on the music so much for a little while and let them grow up.
Hmm.
And so I think that they all three turned out spectacular. They did. They turned out
Despite,
wonderful.
right? Despite
Yeah,
all the,
despite everything. And so
well, see what that does tell you, it tells you that you are a good mom. You know, I, there's a lot, you can, this is something maybe your daughter will listen to, but I just want to kind of just put this out there. You know, a lot of children, when they're growing up, they see mom and dad going back and forth at it and stuff like that. And a lot of times we all have to understand that God chooses, God has a plan for us, God has a path for us. When you said if there's anything that I could have changed, you wish you would have done this, but God had a path for you. God has a path for your daughter. God has a path for all your children and
mhm.
stuff like that. So during this time that you were going through all this stuff, you're God knew that you were in this relationship, and and he he was there for you the whole time, even though there was probably times when you didn't even think about it at the time. He was there for you. And so, it's harder for the children to understand, to see the hurt, see the pain, see the abuse, see everything that's going on.
Well, no, you
Because
can't tell little children about those things. I mean, you just can't. I mean,
and then they're not going to believe it. That's why I keep saying this all the time, that I wrote this article a long time ago. It's swallowing your pride.
oh
And it
wow.
was a thing I wrote about kids with divorced parents. Um,
Mhm.
you read it. I gave it to you to read. I don't expect you to remember it though. But anyway, it talks
Oh
about,
my gosh, I did it again. I must be getting a little old, huh?
uh-huh, yeah. But the thing about it is what the story talks about is it talks about how parents in a relationship, how it can get, things can happen, things do happen. But what was really cool is, I want you to think about this and think real good. Your daughter is saying that she wishes that you guys could work things out.
I think
So what
so.
does that
And
tell you? What does that tell you? That tells you that she didn't see the horrible stuff that was going on, that she didn't see the other abuse that was going on because you and your husband probably didn't allow that to happen in front of the children as much.
maybe there was maybe one or two occasions where she saw it with my first husband, and
Uh,
so the other um these children saw um the second marriage, they saw it.
right, right.
I can remember the children, and this is
Oh,
why I
that's right. I'm
started
sorry.
pushing
I
them
forgot
back.
your daughter in your first marriage. Forgive me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
my
I was talking about the second one.
yeah. There's Cindy, Megan, and Jonathan.
Yep,
So
I forgot about that. Sorry, Cindy. Anyway, so um, but no, it's
they're
difficult.
good kids, man, and
Well, then look what you did. You succeeded.
so no, God did it, because like I can't look. I've come to the point. I'm not taking credit for something that I know I don't have the strength to do, and so
So do you
that's.
think, okay, so think about it. So do you think God just took over without you knowing it?
I think that he does all the time without us knowing. I think he's the driving force of every bit of strength that we have to even get up in the morning.
So this is
I
why
think we
um
don't even notice.
this is one of the biggest things why I wanted to build this ministry. And one of the reasons was is because a lot of people, Christians, and people coming to the Lord and everything else that actually happens. One of the greatest things that we have is the Lord is there for us all the time. What when even when we don't even know that He is there, He is taking care of us all the time. Um, and that's why I there was a lot of change in my life, and that's it's the changes in your life, and and but there has to come a point for you, like it did for me, where not only do we have to forgive other people, we have to forgive ourselves,
Exactly. Yeah.
because there was things that were happening in our lives. There was things that were going on that our children will never ever understand why these
Yeah.
things were going on. And but they, as time goes by, as they grow up, they will then understand, and they'll see you in a totally different way. Sometimes it takes longer. There's sometimes children have resentment and all these other things that
And I don't fault them for any of that, because like I don't think any mom is perfect, and I think that the more you've gone through, or dad, and the more you've gone through, the more it's you're gonna be like saying things you shouldn't say, or not spending time with them or something, because you're so stressed out, because you've gone through all this trauma. Now you're just trying to raise your kids, and you're just trying to get through it. You're not even noticing that there's this whole thing that you're walking them on a spiritual journey. What's crazy is my son said, and my daughter too, and I think all three of them can say this, that at all times I did acknowledge Jesus. They said, and see, going through everything that I'm going through and being the kind of person I am, I'm like, what was I, a hypocrite or something? Maybe I look that way, but I honestly believe that, you come to God as you are, and He's the one who makes the changes, because we can do nothing on our own. So, and He's the changing force. So daily, I'm changing. Like I look back now, who was that person? I don't even know. Like, so it's different.
Oh, it
But
does. It does change, and that's kind of one of the biggest reliefs for me, many times through my life, through a lot of the hurt, pain, suffering, and a lot of the letdowns, and even what the future holds. And it's 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 kind of like I said, and I'll share this with you right now. Here's where my life is right at this moment, between here and here. Okay. From this moment, right now, this second, this moment, till my last breath,
mm-hmm.
I'm not worried anymore,
Right.
because it's in my life is 100% in God's hands. I have gave up anything, all the worrying, the worldly things, the things that used to, put me in situations. And
Exactly.
however, I'm still a sinner. We're all, it,
Yeah.
we're all sinners. We sin all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I'm gonna I'm gonna say to you is your oldest daughter is now a mother. Okay. She's taken on the role of being a mother, just like when you were a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So everything
So
she
she
learned,
is really changing, and her appreciation for me is changing, and her love. And I can see, yeah, I could
okay, you
see a
already know where
beautiful
I'm going with
thing.
this.
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
Okay. So over time, over time, she's going to get that thought in her mind is like, and I would say this to Cindy right now, you have a daughter. Put yourself in your mother's shoes at the time when, you're in a relationship and things aren't going the way that they should, what are you going to do? Uh,
She's so smart that I think she has done that. I really do. I
all
think she
right.
has. I mean, she's so like when we were talking together, I just feel so much love for her. And
Good.
she
How old
just
is she now?
she's 30 years old.
Holy crap. 30.
She's 30, yeah.
My daughter's 26 and my son is 36. I'm just like, where's time go, right?
Yeah, it's crazy because the time went by really fast. I feel like I looked older before because I kind of prayed. I know it was really wrong. I was like, God, I know I'm wrong, but like I'm trying to do some music. I was like, can you make me look younger, according to what I've been through? And then I was like, wow, like what the world, what have I been through, But God loves us. I mean, we shouldn't ask him some things. I mean, so
Well,
I
I
don't
tell you what, you did a good job. You were
with
a
my
good mom.
kids. You
You
think
did.
so?
Yeah, I think you
Yeah,
did good. I think you did better than what you give yourself credit for.
I think so too. And I think that well, your kids, you've done a good job raising them, right? They're doing really well, aren't
Well,
they?
I have a lot of my story is a little bit different. Me being a father to my children, my son, for instance, my divorce at that time, uh, I was like high school sweetheart, got married right out of high school. She was actually still in school when we got married. And I didn't know how to take care of a kid family. I had absolutely zero experience even thinking about taking care of myself, not only taking care of a family. And so, and there was a point where we went through a very tragic time and we had lost a daughter. Uh, and she had a lot of support from her family and I had no support and I had no one to really turn to, even though I could have turned to her,
Mm-hmm.
didn't, I was too proud I wanted to be strong for her. I didn't want to show any weakness to
Exactly.
her. And so I gave up all that for her. But at the same token, it led me to drinking, doing drugs, and it just made things so much worse where I didn't even know how to take care of my family. I didn't even know how to feed my family. I didn't know. All I knew is getting high, getting drunk, partying,
Right.
and everything else. That's all I ever knew. And paying bills, I didn't pay bills. Paying rent, I let the rent go. And I mean, I lived in one apartment where I didn't pay the rent for over a year, you know. And back in those days, you just tell the landlord, I'm gonna try to make it up. I'll do this, I'll do that, all this other stuff. And finally, there just comes a point where there's a lock on your door, and I just, well, there's a lock on my door. I'm gonna kick the door in. So I kicked the door off the hinges, and then we move out. So the thing about it is through those struggles and everything that I went through, that was a time in my life where um I'd cursed God. I hated God. Even though I was saved, I know that I got saved in my teens, sometime in my teens, early teens, I'm pretty sure it was before I met my wife. Um, I would 12, 13, 14 years old in that area. But again, I wasn't 100, I wasn't straight and narrow. We're supposed to
Hmm.
be the straight and narrow. Like you said, you got baptized but yet we both lived
No,
sinful
you
life.
see, I just like went and partied and everything, and my
We
kids
all do that. We all do that.
yeah,
So
so you can't
I think,
feel bad about that. That's the wrong path. I think we know that, but
but,
like you
but look where
welcomed
we're
God
at
in,
today. Look
right?
where you're at.
What about during that time that you were going through the drug and alcohol and the grieving and all? Did you block God out or did you let him in?
I completely ignored him. I didn't want nothing to do with him. And what the way that it just I didn't not believe him that he existed. I knew he was there, but God knew I was really angry at him because he took away our daughter.
Mm.
And it psychologically completely destroyed me to the point where when my son was born, even though when he was born it should have changed me, but the damage was already done where I was too far. I just felt so much grief, so much pain, and so much I felt like I was so alone. I felt um like there was absolutely a zero, nothing there. I loved her with all my heart, but oh my, I loved her so much. But the problem was is I couldn't take care of her, and it
Mm.
made me angry. And when it made me angry, I took the anger out on her.
Hmm.
And I,
That's hard to admit. That's good that you're admitting that because that's
uh,
the way you help people.
and so when I took that anger out on her, it escalated to the point where, there was where I ended up I ended up having to leave the house so that she could get money to take care
Mm.
of my son. And when that happened, I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to do that, but I
Mm.
did that because I wanted, because I didn't know how. I was working. I had money. I could have gave money to her, but I was so completely gone from it. So it came to one time when we were apart. Um, I got very physical with her. I didn't hit her, but I pushed her down very hard. I mean, she was 90 pounds soaking wet, and I'm this big guy, and I pushed her and right in front of my son. And I grabbed my son, I put him in the car, and I drove, because I got him on the weekends. It was a weekend that I got to pick him up. And so I hated myself for what I did. But what that did is it destroyed any chance of me ever reconciling with her. I destroyed that one chance that I could have had her back. And a couple years later, I would find out that she would tell me that I gave up on her and
Right.
my
Because
son.
you could have probably uh still gone back
Yep.
and
All I would have had
reconciled.
to done is say, "Hey, I can't do this. I need help. I don't know how to
Just
do this."
admit what you did and acknowledge you did it. And then a lot of times, women, that's what the woman wants is for the husband to say, "Hey, I done something wrong and I did do it. And I'm not gonna lie in front of people and tell them I'm not and like make you think you're crazy for thinking it, you
Oh
know?"
no, I completely take full responsibility. But we won't get too far into my story because this is really about you. But I can tell you this. I had a lot of hate. It was a very, very, very dark time for me in my life. Between that moment and that moment, I did some very bad, bad things. I mean, we're talking horrible things. And
And we're not, if most people are honest, we're not immune to that,
no,
like, I mean, we live in this world and, sometimes, one thing leads to another thing. And so, like, next thing you know, you might have just smoked marijuana. And now you're doing lines of cocaine,
oh,
so
yeah.
like things like that just escalate. And so, like, uh, you know,
I was drinking about a fifth of Jack Daniels a day.
and musicians get free stuff. And it's a little harder too. And I know you know that.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, because they're like,
Oh,
yeah, come over here, do that, and so
yep.
like,
Yep.
then you're like, my kids are here, like I can't do this, and then like next thing you know, you're doing music, and they bring it out, and then now your kids saw you do it,
Yep.
and so you
Yep.
just keep. I mean, it's disgraceful, the behavior that we sometimes let ourselves sink into, and
Oh, we
then
did. And for me it was like just this cycle of spiraling out of control.
yeah.
And then God, like you said, God has so many ways. I I don't know how, but one of my very good friends, I had asked to go out with his cousin.
Hmm.
So her and I were supposed to go out on a date. It was, um, but unfortunately, before we could literally go out, she got killed in a tragic
Oh,
accident.
was this recent or?
Oh no, this is back when I told you about when between my first wife and after her and I had separated. This is like years, couple years, like actually it was like 5, 6 years later. And I was still had, like I said, it was a very dark time. It was the dark age
Yeah.
of rock. It was really bad. But I mean,
Well, there's no judgment here
I had
because
I
I
had an
have an
earring.
audience
I
to
had a
that.
chain that went from my nose to my ear. I look. I was like, yeah, I was just like very, very bad person. I mean, I was into the music industry at this time. I was literally, um, I had a, uh, I had a DJing company, and that DJing company turned into a kind of like a production company, very slowly but very small at the time. I had very good rooted connections with people in Nashville and stuff like that, and I had done some really cool things, and but in a different world.
Hmm.
And so Jennifer, she got killed. And the night that she got killed, I got a phone call, and my dad told me that this is before cell phones, just so you know. So I was living with my dad at the time, and my dad told me that my friend had called me, and so I called my friend, and he said Jennifer got it killed tonight. And I said, "What? How'd that happen?" Now, I know my friend since we were in fourth grade together. Him and I grew up together and stuff like that. So I knew this family really good. So I got in my car and I drove up. It's like a 45-minute drive all the way up north. And I go right to my friend's. It was his uncle's daughter um, that got killed.
That's
So I went
sad.
right up there, and he's sitting in a chair, and I come walking in the door, and her sister and her stepsister, two stepsisters see me walk in, and but keep this in mind. This is the wait till you hear this. This is so ironic. It's really weird. Prior to that, before me and Jennifer were gonna go out, her sister was a um Christian, contemporary Christian singer. She had wrote 3 albums already, and but she was trying to make it to go to Nashville, and they asked me to be her manager. Okay,
Oh
so
wow.
keep this in mind. So when Jennifer died, I was over that night, and her name was Jolene. And they kind of knew that I was a little bit kind of on the evil side in a way, you know. Um, but they knew that I knew what I was doing when it came to music and the industry, the music industry, and everything else that was going on at that time. So I'll just skip to the important part because there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot that goes on here.
Yeah,
But
there is. Like, you can't even, I mean, it's so big of a span of time, you
I
know?
know it's like so that everybody's like grieving and everything, but then there comes a point where everybody's gonna go to bed. So they I go sleep on the couch. You know, it's in the living room and stuff like that. So paint a picture, they lived on a lake. It was a private lake. And they lived in it was a basement house. So it was just a basement house. And there's a big pane window looking out over the lake, and there was a full moon out. Okay. The lake had ice, you know, it had ice all over it and stuff like that. And then in on my I'm laying on a couch and my head is pointed towards there's a fireplace and they had lights on, very dimmed down lights, so it's very dim. And so I'm laying there and I'm thinking, you know, here you go again. And I'm talking to God. I'm saying, yep, see, I go, this is how you are. You just snatch people out. You just ruin people's lives. I go, and you call yourself, you know, this, and I'm thinking all this in my mind. I'm just saying, you know, this is horrible. You know, I'm just, oh,
We hear that on the inside. I
right,
think every
right.
single one of us.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, Jolene comes walking through the living room and she's got her little Bible with her and she goes in front of the fireplace. In front of the fireplace, there's a picture of Jesus on the mantle. She gets down on her hands, on her knees, and prays. And I'm just sitting here looking, and I said to myself, "I'm getting goose pimples right now. I really am, because this is a very important moment." And so she's praying, and in my mind, I'm going, "How could she be praying right now to you? How could she be so humbled? How could she be so, because she was a Christian, okay? She was a
Hmm.
devoted Christian at her age at this time. She's only 16 at the time, you know what I'm saying? And so anyway, she's done praying. She gets up. She sees me on the couch and she comes over and she kneels down and we start talking. And she says right out of the blue, she goes, Robert, she goes, you are too nice of a guy to have that much hate inside you. She goes, God doesn't want you to hate. Jesus wants you to be, you know, wants you to be happy. He doesn't want you to be hateful. And she goes, you need you need to be happy. You don't need to be angry. You really need to be. And she goes, I'm gonna pray for you, you know, and she prays for me, and I'm sitting there going, how in the world is this happening to me right now? And it was that moment, exactly that moment. And like I said, I'm getting goose pimples. I almost like get teared up. And it was that moment that I said to myself, I've got to stop
Mm.
at that moment. And so I didn't give, you know, things happened after that. I didn't have, you know, I didn't hate God anymore. I worked with Jolene for some years and um I was very fond of her. Loved her a lot. To this day I still love her. I mean, she's a mom. She has 4 children now. She never got to go for her dream. Her but her dream of being in Nashville, to living in Nashville, all that stuff that she wanted to do.
It's bigger than that, and it's not about getting
You know,
going and moving to Nashville or being
just a minor
famous.
piece here. But anyway, she she knows. I told her this, that she was the one that kind of just made me trigger the fact that I didn't I have to stop blaming God for what happened, you know. And I kind of forgave him, which I know sounds crazy, but I literally just kind of went, you know, and I didn't really clean up. I cleaned up my life then, because it was soon after that, Robbie. One time I was sitting in a chair and I had a fifth of Jack Daniels in my hand, and he comes up and he grabs the bottle, and he's like 5 years old, and he goes, "Daddy, no drink no more." Like that.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And I go, "Really?" And he goes, "No more." And to this day, him and I and I never did that, but I still smoke pot and stuff like that. Well, just smoke pot, nothing, something like that. I just kept doing that. But I did give up drinking. And so, so with you, so you can see this, my problems, my tribulations, my sorrows, my things, I went through a lot of hard,
Yeah, a lot, like a lot of grief. I mean, with the
just
grief
like
of
you did.
losing your daughter,
Well, yeah.
and you know the grieving there, and then thinking that you were not sufficient to even try with your wife, and then giving up on that, and like when you know now looking back, it's like, oh, that probably still hurts a bit because like you're
Well,
like, well, that could have worked, but then God has a plan for us. He knows what's going to happen. We know he knows what we're going to do.
right. See,
Yeah.
that's why, jumping, the reason why I told that story about that point where I hated God to the point where I just, if she could be that, I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be, and believe it or not, I, that day moving forward, I never ever I treated people good. I was very, like I am today, very humbled. And I mean, it's real funny because I really, even though I smoked pot, I wasn't the straight Christian. I knew at that time that I had a relationship with God, and my language got cleaned up and everything
Hmm.
else. I was just so on this path because I wanted to be like her. I wanted to be a good Christian, and
She
stuff.
was such a good example, huh?
Well, she doesn't, she really, to this day, I don't think she really ever realized that she literally was probably the one that saved my life completely. Because if she hadn't have been there, I don't know how far I would have gone with the things that I was doing and stuff like that. But she, the what I'm with your story, when you did that transition, and then when you started working with Bo, and you started doing your music and you started writing your songs and stuff like that. Well, that was the same thing for me when I met her. Is it starts to change your life, and
Hmm.
so everything that's in the past doesn't mean anything anymore. It just
Hmm.
means, okay, so even though I got married again and I got trashed again, and I'm like, all this stuff that's happening, and it's like that. I told you that ride home, and I'm just like, I can't take this anymore. I don't want to go through this again. It's all in your hands. I go, and I knew that he took it away, And
Well,
so,
I've been married 3 times, so
yeah,
I've told
I
you
know.
that. And
You've been
so
married 3 times, but you've been naughty a lot more.
it's been very bad, like I've had more fiancés,
And
like
did you have fiancés when you were in elementary school too?
no,
You
I
didn't
had
want to get married when you were in
there was this
kindergarten or
little
something?
my mom had these friends and they had this little baby, and I was a little baby, and they used to put us in the playpen together. And when he got 5, even though we're really itty bitty then, and we knew each other that long, he goes, "You're my girlfriend, aren't you?" I was like, "Nope." And
Nope.
mom said he was so upset for like a long time. Bless his little heart.
Yep.
But
Yep.
he got over it, and he went on to have a family and everything. So I think he's all right. But like,
So where are you today then? Where are you today in your life?
today I think that I'm in a process, like in a changing process. I think that daily I'm learning more about the things that I thought that matter versus the things that really do. The
Hmm.
the real quality of life and what maybe God wants to show you. And it's funny because a coworker, I work in a warehouse, and a coworker, I'm out because of my ankle. That's why you just keep seeing me bobbing around because I'm
That's
trying to
fine.
keep it moving. But like uh as I'm in the warehouse, I'll talk about music or something for a minute, and then because it was such a big part of our lives, even yours, and so you'll get to talking about it a little bit, and the guy goes, have you heard her voice? She's really good, like really good. Like you're crazy. Like why aren't you doing this? And I told him, I said, What would you rather do? Would you rather sing in heaven or sing here?" And he thought about that for a minute, and I think it'll hit him eventually that I'm trying to tell him something, that there's a lot more to just this earth and here and now and everything
Ah,
that's temporal.
amen. Amen. Yeah, absolutely. I God bless you for saying that because it is true. We're just, what we have here is good, but
Yeah, and we do not deserve the heaven or any of that. So, it's God's blessing to us. And so
yeah,
Jesus sacrificed his life. He came in the flesh, he died for our sins
yeah,
on the cross, and then he arose again. And you can't be ashamed of that. You got to tell everybody that you can about Jesus,
that's
because
got to
and,
plant those seeds.
and there's
Okay.
no way to heaven except through Jesus Christ. The Bible says that there um except you I can't even think of the scripture. See, I think I'm getting old.
No, yeah, see,
Yeah.
I'm
No
the
one
one
comes to the
too.
Father except through the Son, I think is what it is. I think that's it. But I don't want to misquote because it's the Bible, and I hold God on the high regard,
Uh,
so um it
it's a
just
lot different though.
is it?
It's a lot different. I mean, back when we were doing the radio shows, the conversations that we had back then, no,
Yeah, there is a whole
nothing's
bunch of
changed. We still are blabbermouths. We still
yeah,
do
we talked the whole time. I mean, but see, whenever people get to know me, all I do is talk. I mean, I wish I could be quiet, but
No,
I
well,
mean,
that's
I admire that in people.
you got a gift to gab. So, the one of the biggest things I wanted to do is the question. If I want to ask you a question, and
Okay.
it's a question that I'm going to ask all my guests,
Okay.
and and I want you to know that you're going to be doing more shows with me, by the way. So,
Okay.
but the question is, what was the best advice, the one best advice you have ever been given in your life?
I'm not sure if it's best, but it's the best that I can remember right now. Okay, so there was, and when I was working at Belk's, there was a coworker, and I was really frustrated because I was trying to manage, and I was like, they're not listening to me. And he said, "How do you push your cart?" And I said, "Well, you get beside it, or you just drag it, you know." And he goes, "No, you get behind it. If you get behind people and work with them, then they're gonna, you know." So that was like such a good advice for me, I think, um, at the place I was at right then. And it just made me see that, why am I thinking that I'm gonna drag a cart? If he's talking about people, maybe I'd be dragging them too, you know? Like, so I
Hmm.
started thinking about that, and I was like, I've got to start getting back with the people instead of thinking I'm above, you know. And so, like, I would say that. Um, but that's just probably because I can't remember anything else right now. But like, I'm sure there's my parents used to tell me all kinds of things that were valuable. Um, very, very strict. My dad was military, so he was in the National Guard through my entire growing up.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
did 30 years, and he's a Vietnam vet, and he was in the Marines.
Yeah.
And so like
Your
yeah.
parents still with you?
My dad is, and my dad has a stepmom. I mean, I have a stepmom. My dad has a wife as of 2000. They've been together, and she's a wonderful woman, and she loves dad just as much as anybody could. And
Mm,
so, like, the two of them together, pretty great. And
yeah.
so I lean on them for support often. And 'cause I miss all my family. Actually, I miss North Carolina about right now because,
Oh,
I
did
moved out here and I did all this, and now I'm starting to kind of miss home. But I do love some of the people, a
yeah.
lot of the people that I've gotten to know over the years here
I,
in Tennessee.
my daughter. Uh, there's a, I'm gonna there's gonna be a story that we'll do another time, but my daughter lives in Alabama.
Oh, she does.
Yeah,
She could come over and see me.
and she. Oh, what's that?
She could come over here and see me then
You
if
live in
she's
Alabama?
no,
Oh,
but it's not far.
no, it's not far, but I am so thankful to God. So thankful. I am so thankful that she found a man right off the bat. Her high school boyfriend was a jerk. I mean, he was like a total. I am so happy that she didn't end up with that guy. But the guy she's with right now is the guy that every father wants his daughter to end up with. And he is everything. He takes care of her. He I'll never forget one word he said to me is I when we were going through a little tough time with her, and he says, I go, I'm just really glad that you really take care of her. And he goes, ah, she's just nothing but a beautiful mess, you know?
Oh,
He
that's
goes,
so much
he goes,
love
we'll
right
work
there.
together. We'll get through it. Don't worry. And I just don't. He takes good care of her.
That
And that
sounds like a really good guy.
he's really good. And then, they both have a baby together now. So, but yeah.
And
So,
my daughter, I feel like she found the same,
yeah,
but in this case it is a high school sweetheart, but not the first one, remember? So,
right, right.
yeah.
No, no. So, but yeah, I just thank you for being on the show, and thank you for being my first guest. I really appreciate that a lot because
Oh,
it's
yeah, you're
important.
welcome. It didn't even feel like a chore or anything. And anytime you want me or Bo to come on, or
Oh,
both
I'm
of
gonna
us.
get Bo. Bo's next, by the way.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
Yeah, yeah. He
He's
doesn't
gonna
know
be
it yet,
like,
but he's
that
next.
woman.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it. And so yeah, so if you're I appreciate everybody who's watching this who endured it and to the end. And uh follow us and like us and hit the uh, notification bell to get us and help share our show. And this is really going to be a good one. And Christy and I have known each other quite a long time. We had a little bit of a separation because from 2015 up until really now,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot's happened in our lives. And I am so thankful
Yeah, me
you
too.
and Bo ended up together
I'm so thankful that
because
you are not in that hospital or worse. I'm just
uh,
grateful for that because we were really praying for you. And so, like, I mean, God, look at what God's done. And
mm,
so you're here.
yeah, yeah, we're gonna get to talk about that. We're gonna get to talk about actually I'm gonna get to have a show where I get to talk to you, and I think what I'll do is I'll have both you and Bo together side by side, and we'll go over my story from when I went in the hospital and my dream being in a coma and my journey from that until where I am today and my journey where I am with Christ as it is right now. Uh, because my journey has been where I was when you and I were together, doing a radio show to where I am today is much different,
Mm,
different path, and I'm a much different person than I used to be. And my love for Jesus and what he had done for us on the cross is really important to me. So we're gonna get to do that. So uh thank you again for being on the show,
all
and
right.
we'll
You're
do
welcome.
this again sometime soon. Uh and we'll get to see how this goes, and maybe we'll get some people. You got to share it though. So
Yeah, I have no problem sharing it unless I sound like a crazy person just babbling, but it never bothered me before. So it's a good message that, we all need to share and not be ashamed of Jesus. I mean, it's the most important thing.
there you go.
And pray for each other.
Spoken well. All right. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you soon. All right.
All right, bye.